All right, what you see here is my drain basket, and it's full of stuff I washed yesterday afternoon, getting ready to start the project that I was doing for today, which is Thanksgiving, and that is the uh, spinach and artichoke casserole. And last night I sauteed the spinach, and that'll be a separate video just on not so much making the recipe as I want to show you a couple of tricks on that. But meanwhile, I washed a few things, and what you're going to see here is back in late August, actually it was uploaded on August 30th, you saw me doing a video where I was showing how to start cleaning your kitchen up when your kitchen was a big mess. And it's called Cleaning Up Your Kitchen, Don't Panic. And in that video, you saw briefly my blue dish rack, which is very similar to what you see here. This is the new replacement I bought back in June, I think it was, and I bought it in Bed Bath and Beyond. It's the same style basket that I was using before. The previous blue one I had had for about over 20 years at that point, and it was looking a little worse for wear. The this part, the drain board, was no longer cleaning up well, and the rack basket itself was starting to lose some of its plastic or silicone coating and was no longer cleaning up, and it was just looking a little ragged. So I replaced it, and this is the replacement. But the important thing here is, what's the big deal about a drain basket? Well, as you can see, I've got hand washed goods that can't go in the dishwasher, or simply can't fit, or I simply ran out of room, whatever the case may be. You need some place to be able to stack your dishes. Now, this particular unit, as you can see, it's got a bowl, some bowls, splatter shield and stuff like that, and in it, and off to the side I have a drain mat. It's more like an absorption mat, and on it is my big mixing bowl, which I used I think the night before for dinner. In any case, it ended up being used to wash the stuff in, and then I washed it out and placed it here. This is actually a perfect spot for stuff like this, and for um, pots and pans and things of that nature. But the whole point here is you need to have some sort of a drain basket, and you need to also think about the space that you're in, the amount of counter space you have, and what can work. And I am more of one of those people who values function over looks. In other words, it needs to do what I need it to do. And if it's a little dowdy, that's okay. Because that's the important part, is getting things that work well, that won't irritate you, and you'll find yourself being a lot more happier working in your kitchen. And that's what I wanted to show here. And I chose this particular basket because it can hold a lot of stuff and the occasional pot or pan that needs to go in here. In fact, earlier last week I had my non-stick skillet stacked on top when I washed it. But anyway, as I've got the room here to do it, because this counter is not used for cooking, it's used strictly for cleanup. And of course the coffee pot is also here, but that's it. So I can leave this out 24/7, 365 days a year, and there's almost always something in it. But anyway, this is going to be a video based on what to get, and it's not so much what to get, but what to look for in a basket that will fit your needs. And some baskets I just simply don't see being useful, because A, they can be top heavy because they're two-tier, and B, they just simply don't hold, as they hold a lot of dishes, but they don't necessarily hold pots and pans. And so that's what I'm going to kind of focus on more than anything with this video. But for right now, I just want to show you this. This is my replacement. And that's how I stack things. And I tend to stack and let dry on its own overnight, because that's actually the best way. And this particular basket is a good size one. I want another Rubbermaid, but they only made the small size that's designed to fit in a compartmentalized sink. And I didn't want that because it's too small. This is perfect. It's even got places for glasses, which I never used, or generally never used. Now, when I didn't have a dishwasher and had to wash everything by hand, I did use them when I could. So, but these days I don't really need them. Need to the things for putting dish or glasses in, except maybe the occasional one here and there. But otherwise, this is perfect size for what I need, as you can see. So anyway, just wanted to share this and get it starting on a video that I'll be talking about different types of baskets, what they're good for, and why I chose this particular one, and stuff like that. Because you need to think about your space, i.e. the cabinet space, the height of the space you're going to be working in, and things of that nature, as well as your counter size of your counter. Because not everybody's going to have dedicated counter space. They can leave something like this up. But you need some place to put your hand washables and let them dry. I'm not one who takes a towel and dries everything, puts it away. I tend to just let things stack and then take care of it in the morning. Okay, I'm going to show you one of the things that's going to that I'm going to be talking about is the size of your basket, the area around your basket, like the height, and the counter space. First of all, you need to figure out how many dishes you're going to be washing in any given day. As far as, are you going to be washing dishes every day, all the time, because you don't have a dishwasher? Or are you just washing up the few hand-washed items that can't fit in the dishwasher or simply can't go in for one reason or another? And therefore, what type of things, like, do you need to occasionally wash a pan? Which in my case is occasionally. And therefore, this is an all-clad non-stick. But others, like the carbon steel and the cast iron, those don't get put here because they need to be dried right away, or else you will run the risk of them rusting. But everything else that can't go in, like the baking sheets, the 1/4-inch baking sheets, anything aluminum, I don't like to put those in the dishwasher because they will discolor, and I'm not real cool about some of the nicer pieces being dull gray. Anyhow, normally the grater will go in the dishwasher, but I didn't have room for it the other night. But and the blue tray as well. The splatter shield, no, that can't go in the dishwasher. But basically everything else that's in here can, except for, of course, obviously the Thermopin. But in things like that can't go in the dishwasher for one reason or another, you need someplace to put them. And I chose, and a basket is really great because it does two things. One, it gives you a safe place to stack things. And as you will see in a photo taken back in 2014 in my old apartment, when I was still washing dishes by hand. And you'll also see it in the beginning of this post as well. It's great when you have a bunch of things that need to be washed by hand and you can stack them in here. and not worry about them sliding out unless you're trying to stack too high. Then you might run the risk of something sliding off the top of the pile. But basically, this is what you have, and but the other thing you need to worry about is take a look at this cabinet and then one next to it. They're really just one cabinet, but this one has been, this lower shelf was indented in to give room for the sink. But it's basically the same cabinet, and they had doors on them that were all flush with this style. And I took the other one out in the middle about a year ago. Anyhow, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of room between the bottom of the cabinet and the rack. So you need to consider that, because some of the two-tiered racks might top out with the rack topping out about here. Then you have to add your plates, which from here is where the basket is. Up here is, you know, somewhere in here is where your plate will end. So if your basket is like ends right there, that's where your plate is going to be, almost to this top second shelf. But that's things you need to think about. And also, there are some baskets that are made to fit behind your sink. Take a look at this sink. There's no room for one. Even if I could put one, get one back there, there's no room to put plates, because the plates will go on the top shelf. And again, your plate will probably be somewhere in this range when done. But take a look at the faucet. Yeah, that faucet is going to be in the way. It's probably too tall for the racks that are available. And then you have to think about how top heavy is it going to be when you start adding plates, bowls, and all the other things that go into it. And if you don't really have sufficient wall space close to the rack, or to the back of the rack itself, there's nothing there to keep the rack stabilized. And you need to think about that, because some of the racks may not be deep enough for what you need them to be. Therefore, you will need to think about those kinds of things when you choose a rack. And don't choose based on looks. Choose on functionality as well. Anyhow, that's the crux of this video, and that's the next thing I'm going to show you what my old basket a little more closely, and some examples of what I feel are not best designs. Okay, this is a picture that I took from one of my first posts on my blog back in 2014 when I first started using the blog. And at that time, this was my old apartment and my old drain basket. Now, I had already had it quite a few years by this point, but it was in better shape than it was last summer. Anyhow, as you can see, this is at least a couple of days worth of dishes, if not several days worth of dishes that I had put off and finally got around to washing by hand. And as a result of that, what you see here is just the accumulation of dishes that were all washed by hand. They're bowls, ramekins, small mise en place bowls, plasticware, plates, and I think there may have been some stuff right over here. But notice, and a whole gaggle of flatware, knives, things of that nature. But notice right there, and over here too, those are feet, and the feet are where one of the problems lie. You can kind of see it right here. You can't really see it here because it's a little dark, but that part of the drain basket starts sagging, and right where the feet sat was indentations, and that's where water would puddle up and it would turn black, because it would just turn black if I didn't keep it clean. And if you took the basket out and cleaned the bottom, the blue dye used to color this plastic drain board would come up onto the scrubby sponge that I was using to clean it with. Now, it would wash out, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was it was just sloughing up color and just wasn't cleaning up. It was getting all splotchy, and eventually one of these, I think this might have been this one, broke through and was literally sitting on the sink edge. This was a two-piece unit. The basket sat on top of the drain board. Some of the stainless steel ones, like from KitchenAid, Simple Human, and a few others, they snap onto the bottom, and they have a spout that you can move from the end or to the side, depending on which way you need to orient the basket. I like it this way because it leaves room for the drain mat, the drying mat, which allows me to put things like quarter sheet baking pans, large pots, skillets, anything what I call overflow there, because stacking them on top of all of this would either become precarious, fall off on the floor, or might break something. Anyhow, this is what you see, and I'm going to show you the next photo. I think this one here. Yeah. Here, you can see, let me make it a little bigger. You can see right here and right up here, the plastic, in this case, is probably a form of PVC. This was taken back in August, actually. This is a screenshot cropped, and then I expanded it within Photoshop so you can see it better. As you can see, the bottom of this needed a good cleaning, but even when cleaned up, it never looked great. But you can see how the plastic was starting to show signs of coming off in places. This is probably PVC, not silicone, but PVC. Over time, PVC does lose its plasticizer, and it will, over time, dry out, crack, and then start flaking. And then the wire, which is what this is literally made of, these are the tines that are used to hold the plates up. Eventually, they rust when they lose their coloring. So once that happens, it can leave rust spots onto your dishes. Therefore, at that point, you need to think about what replacing. And I've been doing this for a while, and I finally got around to it. But anyhow, that's one of the reasons I replaced it. And here it is, a little bit wider out, and you can kind of see there's mold on the bottom of that foot, and it was probably poking through, and I think this one had fallen through completely. But as you can tell, it was past its prime, and it had been long past its prime for a while. In that video, in the opening, you'll see it fairly full of stuff, including my quarter sheet pan. Anyhow, all of that fits in here, and what's great is it keeps things from falling out and onto the floor and getting broken. As you can see here, this is another shot after the last of the dishes were washed by hand. As you can see, the scrap bowl is plopped on top because it's plastic, and I have things like the bento boxes on the drain rack or the drying mat, which I call the overflow. And there's a pot, and there's a small bowl. It's just all kinds of stuff in this basket. This basket, like I said, I've had for over 20 years. And it just got to where it wouldn't clean up. Holes were forming down at the base of the rack itself, where the bottom of the sink side of the rack had broken through. Things of that nature. Here is a rack from a company called Zojoli or something like that. One is a little bit expensive as it's $90. But what I'm talking about here is the fact that you have a separate area for uh, stemmed wineware. Problem is, I find I don't like stemware for the simple reason that it's too often easily broken, and I've gone away from that, so I don't really need that option anymore. And half the time they don't fit in dishwashers anyway, unless you have an adjustable rack, upper rack. So this is out, but the basic idea is great, but it's wicked expensive. Right here, as you can just see in the photo, is the spout. I can move that from here to the end if I need to. This is an overshoot so you can have a place for your cups to drip onto, and then it will drain out into your sink. So you can orient it any way. But here's another thing that I don't like as well. The way you have to orient your plates in the Simple Human as well as in the KitchenAid, they're very similar. I prefer them to go the length of the unit instead. And as you see in the first photo, as you can see here, but you can see it more clearly in this one. I like this better because you can stack plates in the back and then put your bowls up front. So it works really well when you need to do at least 4 people, if not 6 people, or you're just gotten lazy and busy or whatever the case may be and didn't get a chance to really clean anything, wash everything up within a couple of days, and you're piling dishes up everywhere. Sometimes I've had to let dishes literally go until I have nothing really clean, and had to clean before I could actually start doing cooking dinner. So that is one reason why I like this style basket better than I do some of the others. This is a Zojoli or whatever it's called, but it's like $100. And the image, this is actually, let's see if I can get it a little bit bigger. This one's actually decent enough because it's the right orientation, and you can put small things down here, and you can stick cookware if you need to in the upper portion. So that works, but it's like I say, it's wicked expensive. It's even more expensive than the Simple Human or KitchenAids. The KitchenAid one is even more expensive. This I don't like at all because, as you can see, it's just fine for everyday wear. But if you need to dry everything else, forget it. It's not going to do the job real well, and the tray doesn't drain into the sink. You have to empty it at the end of when you get ready to put things away, and it's just not something I like. Here is another one. This one is designed to fit on the back side of your sink, and I'll show you the photo of what here it is. And as you can see, there's nothing holding it from falling over from the backwards, unless it's up against a wall or tied to a wall or something. I don't like this. You can't really fit big items unless you've got the drain board, which this sink has. And that's great when you need to add stuff onto the counter or in a pot or pan or whatever. And if the drain board is designed correctly, it'll direct the water back into the sink. Otherwise, the drying mat right next to the sink will work. But I still don't like it. It's you have to make sure you have room up above, and not every kitchen, especially older kitchens that you don't have the money to redo and you have to make do with what you have, it's not an ideal solution in my book. I would rather just be able to not have to think about it, put stuff in the sink, in the basket, stack it up if you need to, and let it drip dry overnight. So I don't like this style either. Like I said, this is pretty decent. I can go with this. I can also go with the KitchenAid. See, this is what I mean. This is great if you have a porcelain sink with the big fat lip. My buddy has one, and this will clear it. Now, it will drain. If you notice, it slopes down, and then the center slopes, so the water will drip back in. You just have to make sure that it's close enough to the sink so that it will drip into the sink. Like I said, I don't like either of those. Anyway, KitchenAid comes out on top. Simple Human comes out on top. The Simple Human is a little bit larger in size, but I like the basic rack that I have. You can still get versions of these around. They're just basic units, and this one you do have to buy the rack and the drain board separately, unfortunately, but it's like $24 for the two of them, so it's $34 tops. Anyhow, those are the things to think about, and that's just one of the things you need to acquire for your kitchen. At least I highly recommend that you acquire for your kitchen. And whether you have a dishwasher or not, it becomes necessary to wash the things that either can't fit in the dishwasher or you simply run out of room for. So if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button, and if you want to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified. It'll do this channel a world of good, and I'll see you on the next one.